A collection of words that language was always leading to.
In October of 2025, I got an email about NewFest, a New York organization that showcases and celebrates LGBTQ film and media. In this email, I learned about the New York LGBT Film Festival being hosted later that month. This caught my interest, being a raging bisexual and all, and I'm always down to support queer projects. But I was a little tired after having gone to TIFF the previous month to watch the animated film showcase there, and wasn't willing to make the trip to NYC on such short notice. Luckily, NewFest offered digital screeners for select movies, available for only about $15 a pop. So I took that deal to watch the premiere animated film of the festival, Lesbian Space Princess. This is an independent film from Australia directed by Emma Hugh Hobbs and Leela Verghese. Pretend I said those names correctly. This film caught my attention when I first heard of its existence, not only because I'm interested in smaller animated movies like this, but because, come on, it's Lesbian Space Princess. An enticing combination of 3 words for sure, and one that reminds me of She-Ra, one of my favorite cartoons of all time. So it seemed like something I would enjoy, and this seemed like the perfect opportunity to see it without having to physically go to a festival. With that, I watched the movie in my college dorm room, and I enjoyed it. Lesbian Space Princess is a very charming and fun film coated in delicious queer flavoring. It stars a young, extremely self-conscious princess named Sierra, who gets dumped by her radical bounty-hunting girlfriend Kiki. When Kiki gets kidnapped by aliens and held as bait, it's up to Sierra to get over her self-doubt and travel across the galaxy to save her. And when I say the galaxy, I mean the galaxy. And when I say aliens, I mean the straight white male aliens, who are literally white rectangles. I think those details should give you a pretty good idea of how this film is. It's unabashedly queer and in your face with how its concepts are presented. Subtlety doesn't really exist in this movie. But I don't necessarily see that as a bad thing, because it's clearly intentional and integral to this movie's brand of humor. There's a lot of gay puns and meta jokes, but it works for a movie of this type, and miraculously doesn't come across as obnoxious to me. It complements the movie's exciting world and a well-told story about a young adult finding her self-worth without being attached to someone else. It feels very personal and sincere. Not to mention the animation, which while a little simplistic, is still very bubbly and fun. There are some jokes that are drawn out or don't quite land, as well as some story decisions I found to be kind of lame. This was the first feature film from either of the directors, and you can very much tell. But it's a really good first step for both of them, and an enjoyable film on its own. Not quite one of the best animated films of last year, but I still liked it, and I'm glad I got to watch it. Good movie, though it isn't the best lesbian princess animated movie we've gotten in the past year. So why exactly am I talking about it today? Well, because this movie has unfortunately caught the attention of the most vile, hateful, and cruel community in existence, the internet. And the worst sections of it too, TikTok and Muskahound land. I don't know where exactly this started, but somehow in the past few days, this movie has become the most hated thing in existence and the internet's #1 punching bag. Tweets and TikToks dogging on it are blowing up left and right, people are giving it half stars on Letterboxd, fandoms that hate each other are calling truces just to shit on it. I don't think I've ever seen this level of passionate hatred towards an animated film. Like, not even the hate for Animal Farm or Wish or Megamind vs. the Doom Syndicate seemed this bad or vitriolic. I just listed 3 of the worst animated films of the decade, and yet the reactions to those are fucking tame compared to the ones for this movie. This movie that, might I point out, was well received upon release. Look at the majority of critic reviews from last year, and they seem pretty positive. And while I didn't see it with the crowd, so I can't say how the audience reacted, it won a ton of film festival awards, so it appears most of the audiences who saw it last year enjoyed it as well. I enjoyed it. It's a sweet movie that I was sad got swept under the rug when it released, but now I want it to stay under the rug. Holy shit, what is going on? Now this wave of hatred for an animated thing isn't completely unprecedented. For example, a few months ago, everyone teamed up to make fun of Hexed, mainly because it doesn't look very good. And I sorta had a hunch that this, of all movies, would get people's attention for the wrong reasons sooner or later. With a title like Lesbian Space Princess, you're very explicitly telling the world what your movie is. And the world, the internet especially, is a cruel, unkind place that blows silly things out of proportion. I knew deep down that this movie would at least draw the attention of that crowd. You know, that one. But this is not that. It's one thing when a group of grifters get angry about minor representation in media, it's another thing when the entire fucking internet teams up to shit on an indie Australian animated film. So you might be wondering, what exactly in the film are people angry at beyond the title? I tried to find the source of where exactly this all started from, but I don't know if this is exact because my brain brain is rotting from scrolling through all this nonsense. The closest I got to an answer is this TikTok with 500,000 likes that makes fun of the movie's title card.
She's a lesbian, she's in space, and she's also a princess. Oh, and she's very sad.
Pretty in line with what you would expect for content farming or whatever. I'm not staying on TikTok any longer to analyze this shit. But then we move over to Twitter. You see, in the movie, there's a scene where this non-binary character, Willow, confesses their love to Sierra with a little song, with the lyrics being, "I've got a crush on you," over and over. It's a little cringy, but it's a cute and charming scene in the context of the film. And this right here, this is what Twitter picked out and decided to treat like the spawn of Satan. Here we get a tweet that reads, "As a lesbian, this turned me straight." This tweet then blew up and seemed to get the ball rolling for the internet's hatred of this movie. An intentionally cringy love confession that lasts less than a minute. This is what got, quote, the homophobic population to increase by 47%. And I just find this immense hatred over nothing to be kind of ridiculous and uncalled for. Now, I must acknowledge, I have seen some genuine criticisms of this movie, particularly for the way it portrays trans people. In the movie, there's a trans drag queen who attempts to steal Sierra's sacred weapon and then gets decapitated. I didn't think much of this when I first saw the movie, since it's a 3-minute scene with not much bearing on the rest of the plot. But since then, and with this whole mess, I've seen people come out and say that this part had some implications that paints trans people in a negative light. In fact, a lot of this movie has been called out for stereotyping the LGBTQ community, with many saying it doesn't execute its queer themes in the most respectful way. Let me just say that I am not knowledgeable in this area, nor am I trying to pretend that I am. Yes, I am bisexual, but like, that's just because I think Howl is sexy. I'm no queer expert, for lack of a better term, so many of these implications people are criticizing the movie for may have flown over my head when I first saw it. But these people do seem to know what they're talking about, especially when it comes to trans history and the meaning of this part of the movie. And anything that legitimately offends them is not something I want to condone, even if I did enjoy the film. Please enlighten me in the comments if you're one of those people who has legitimate problems with this movie's representation, because I would like to learn more about what exactly it does wrong. On top of that, the movie is very loud and in your face with its humor, like I said before. It doesn't really take itself too seriously, and I can see why its vibe wouldn't be for everyone. And that's perfectly fine. Not liking a movie for these legitimate reasons, or simply just not enjoying it, makes sense, and you're absolutely entitled to your opinion. Especially in the case of the trans community calling out the movie for how it represents them. The problem is, that is not what is causing a hatred of this immense scale. It simply isn't. Do you think the entire internet is uniting against this movie because of the legitimate criticisms the LGBTQ community has over its representation? We can't even get Americans to unite against Mr. Orange Man. No, 90% of this hatred comes down to "it's cringe" and it being the new hip trendy punching bag. The most liked tweets and TikToks of this new hatred wave are simply mocking trivial aspects of the movie rather than pointing out the legitimate criticisms the trans community has. The majority of people shitting on this movie are doing it for the likes. Not all, but most. And it's blatantly obvious people are only doing it for that reason when they don't even know what they're fucking talking about. People are calling it a show and saying that Netflix made it, which is not true. Furthermore, how many people participating in this trend do you think have actually watched the damn movie? Like, sat down and watched it from start to finish, not just select clips on TikTok and Twitter? This is a non-mainstream / indie animated movie. Nobody watches those. I made my entire YouTube personality complaining about that fact. The point is, this hatred is not legitimate. At least most of it isn't anyway. I'm absolutely not trying to dismiss the people who are criticizing this movie for legitimate reasons. They have absolute reason to, and even if I personally enjoyed the movie, I'm not gonna go out and say they're wrong. That's frankly not my ground to speak on. The people I'm calling out here are the ones treating this movie they haven't watched like the worst piece of animated media ever because cringe. I don't think that's fair or just, not only to the movie itself, but also to those people who are criticizing it for those legitimate reasons. Their fair callouts are getting buried underneath mountains of trend chasers who, again, don't even know what they're talking about. It just goes to show how toxic and ruthless the internet can be towards basically anything. In the digital copy I rented from the film festival, before the movie started, there was a little interview with the directors gushing about how fun the movie was to work on, and how it reflected their own tastes and lives. I thought that was really sweet, and watching the film itself, I can tell a ton of passion went into making it. It stings knowing that this talented team of artists is now associated with public enemy #1 on the internet, mostly because of a trend. That doesn't mean I think the crew shouldn't be called out in some form for this movie's more questionable or stereotypical aspects. There is room to do that. But treating their work that you didn't even watch as a crime against nature because it's cringe is just really corny and lame to me. Why can't we just judge movies fairly? The people calling out this movie for its questionable aspects are doing that, but the thousands more dogpiling on it for a trend are not. So don't dismiss a piece of media because it's hip to hate on for silly reasons, and don't bury the voices of those who are criticizing it for legitimate reasons. And if you want to just get angry at a piece of media for no reason other than getting likes, I don't know, go shit on an actual bad movie, I guarantee you there are plenty of those to pick from. And furthermore, you should watch the movie for yourself before deciding it's your worst enemy based on one viral Twitter clip. Society is never going to progress if the internet keeps acting like this and loudly shutting out art for the wrong reasons. Because if you do that, you may be as close-minded as a straight white malian. Anyways, thanks for watching. I'm gonna go watch SpongeBob Season 6. Bye.